Hey, Blockhead traders. Here, Blockhead traders, I must inform you that we are not financial professionals. Nothing we say should be considered financial advice. We offer our own thoughts and opinions to you, the viewer. We expect you to take those opinions and form your own conclusions and make your own financial decisions. Today is Sunday, March 27th, 2022, and this is Blockhead Traders Weekly. In this week's episode, I am joined by fellow Blockhead trader Viper XL 007, and we are going to have another conversation episode this week about gaming and crypto. But before we hop to that topic, I want to give a shout out to our Discord, link in the description below. You can click on that. You can go in there, say hello to Viper, myself, a couple other Blockhead traders. Let us know what you're trading. Let us know what kind of content you'd like to hear about. Love to hear from you. You'll also find a link to thetagang.com/sprocket888. It's where I post each and every one of my trades, the good, the bad, and the ugly. However, let's hop to this week's content of gaming and cryptocurrency. So, Viper, I know you're kind of in the crypto space a little bit more than me, and you kind of snagged me recently on one of these games, and we're going to get into that in the future. But I wanted to take a look back at some of the gaming revolutions, let's call it, over the years, and where maybe this cryptocurrency and blockchain evolution kind of fits into that. And what I mean by that is, when I first started playing video games, Nintendo was the original Nintendo was popular at the time, right? The first game system I ever bought was a Sega Genesis. And it kind of went from there, right? Back then, you didn't have any online playing. It was just a cartridge, controller, maybe two controllers if you were lucky, and a couple of friends over, and you'd play games. And that kind of progressed as the internet kind of came out. And even before the internet, I know when I was in middle school, big popular thing for me was to join these BBSs. And there was these games, they were text-based games where you would interact with other people and you'd type and it would just be text and you'd be going, navigating this world. No pictures, just navigate, to the west is a cemetery and to the east is a tavern. And, you would kind of go there. And the difference was there was other people that played those. And that was kind of the very first online gaming experience that I kind of had. But as we get closer to more today, and we talk about these different games and cryptocurrencies and blockchains and things like that, they really remind me of two really big events, let's call them. And the first is the multiplayer, massive multiplayer online games. And I distinctly remember when I first went to university, at the time, EverQuest had just come out. Now, I never really played it, but I knew a lot of people that did. And it was probably the first biggest MMO that was out there as far as popularity goes. It followed Ultima Online, I think, was the original MMO, and I never really played that much of anything. But this EverQuest was this limitless world that you would go in and you'd interact with other people at just this huge scale. And I think the game might even still be online today. It's gone through, almost 25 years of changes, but that was the real first, this huge universe of all of these players. And the other piece that I really think kind of ties into this is the birth or the prevalence of games with microtransactions. And what I mean by that is, so many games today are based on these tiny little things in the game where you spend real money on. And I distinctly remember one of my first large exposures to this was when one of my kids was really getting into Madden football games at the time. It was just the mobile Madden, not the Madden on the consoles or things like that. And that game had so many little transactions that you would spend money, 99 cents for a pack of cards, and you'd get these cards in the game, and the cards would have different attributes for the players, and you try to collect them, and that would level up your team. And I just, he was they were spending all this money, oh, it's only, 99 cents here, 99 cents there. And if you looked it up over a course of, 3, 4 months, a year, they might have spent $150 on this. And it really blew my mind because I grew up in that era of cartridge games where, you paid your $35, your $50, you got your cartridge, and you just played the game. And I think some of that Viper really kind of comes in when we look at some of these more modern cryptocurrency games.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I feel like to keep painting this bigger picture of evolution, we'll call it, I think that's kind of where my brain starts, as I started going down this train of, getting deeper into blockchain, getting not just, as for those who have been following the show for a while, I started, initially just trading tokens and coins at a very high level, yada, yada. But now I'm like at the point where I'm sitting on one specific blockchain, exploring the games that exist there and kind of, better conceptualizing what does this mean for the future of gaming. Because we've all heard it, NFTs and gaming and all this, there's a lot of controversy around that, but painting this bigger picture, like you started, we have games that gaming in general is on a particular trajectory. And we've, just like you said, we've seen the rise of just the single player cartridge stuff into multiplayer, into online RPGs, and microtransactions. And it's really that development of microtransactions and how that intersects with blockchain technology that has me particularly interested in this current next phase of potential evolution. And part of that's because, what is a lot of these cryptocurrencies we've talked about recently, like egg from the chicken game? What is egg? Why is that anything? But that very well could just be a microtransaction in a mobile game. And that's something we're all very familiar with and we understand. However, to me, at least the point that I've come to, the cryptocurrency version of a game, of an idle earning game, makes more sense than a mobile game with a bunch of microtransactions because of this decentralized nature of the money and the intrinsic value of that token versus a mobile game where you're buying you're taking real US dollars, throwing them into a game, and as far as value goes, it's a black pit. You throw it in there and the value is using that whatever you bought in the game, but we all know how quickly we can potentially rip through games and go to something else, go to the next thing, and then that value's gone. It's just it was converted into time spent in the game, and then we never were able to extract that value back out of the game. And so that's, to me, a big interesting thing that cryptocurrency could potentially solve, because you still put that real US dollars into the game, but at any point in time, there's a buyer and a seller. It goes back to economics of a market, of a free market or a player-driven market. By the time I want to come out of the game, maybe somebody else wants to come into the game. And so if it's an NFT character, if it's something, there's a market available that I can actually sell and maybe make a profit. But even forgetting the ideas of profits and losses, I can get something tangible out of the game as I move on to something else. So that's, I don't know, that's at a high level kind of where my brain is at on it.
Yeah, I think it kind of almost brings back a modern twist to something that you and I kind of grew up with, and that was these cartridge games that we're kind of talked about as starting it up. We had these games and they were cool for a while, and then we wanted to try a new one. We used to be able to rent games from places, or we'd take the ones that we'd already beat, and we'd go to the video game exchange, and we'd take our cartridges and we'd turn them in, and we'd buy used cartridges that somebody else was trying to get rid of, right? And you kind of swap them. And almost, in a lot of the more modern games today, when you're done with your mobile game, when you're done with that, it just goes away. You just delete it basically. You can't ever really resell it per se like you could with those old cartridge games. And I think with some of the way that some of these things are set up on the blockchain, these games, these artifacts in the games, they retain the stuff that you've done with them. They can retain their attributes. They can be transferred. The ownership can be transferred to somebody else while preserving the entities there. And so it's almost a little bit like those old game exchanges where you would take your used stuff, like, yeah, we got joy out of it, we got value out of it, but we wanted to move on. And we were able to go sell that to somebody else. We could go buy that somebody else's stuff and we could explore something new. I feel there's bits of that in the world today with the stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And even more so, because I think that's a really good point that you brought up as far as retaining your progress on these particular characters or things. And some of this is specific to the game. Not all games are going to do this, but in this little mini series that we're about to go on, it's very relevant to a couple of the games that we want to look at here. Because again, like, to keep a game interesting, especially when you get into now this kind of living, breathing, evolving world of game, whether it's MMO RPGs or whatever, the way you keep people playing the game is to let them keep leveling up. So back in the day when it was exchange a cartridge, get somebody else's used cartridge, none of their progress came with that used cartridge. You started back at level 0 and started climbing your way up again. But now that we have this mentality of needing to evolve and needing to level up, it's really hard to develop a living, breathing, market-driven game and require new users start back at level 0. So now being able to retain that progress is in and of itself more value to both resale value as well as entering a game new and not feeling like you missed the boat. You'd be like, all right, I'm going to enter at this progress, which is already at a good level, whatever that means to the particular game. And now I'm going to take it from here. I'm going to keep going. And maybe I take an exit ramp at some point or whatever as you go. And that, just, I guess, very much, like you said, has that built-in hallmark to that used exchange mentality in a new age way.
Yeah, for sure. And looking at it, right? I'm not one that's ever been a big gamer, let's say. But, why do we talk about some of this? Why is some of this stuff relevant? Well, historically, gaming is a ginormous market, and there's been a lot of cutting edge innovation over the years when it comes to the gaming space. And, it's not just kids playing video games or, niche markets. Video games, you look at the Nintendo Wii, basically totally changed the people that got involved in gaming for the masses, right? The number of people that purchased that Nintendo Wii were not historically people that were big gamers by the stereotypical definition. And there's been events like that over the years that have just really changed the landscape of things. And as investors, as traders, we're always looking for that large market, that large growth expansion area. And with cryptocurrencies and blockchains and gaming, you really have a confluence of a few different things where you have this new technology that's going to enable new ways to think about things, new ways to approach things, but you also have this other vector in this space of there's a lot of room to expand here. And if done in a particular way, you really can hit a wide audience and experience very explosive and long-lasting growth is where, that's the hope.
Yeah. And that's, like, to me, the power of gaming in its history, like if we look at it again, zoomed out, gaming has always served as a conduit for experience and, value or something. And so to drill a little bit deeper into that, in the very beginning, it was a conduit just to entertainment, Nintendo Entertainment System. It was gather the family around, gather the kids around, and entertain yourselves. And you played these cheeky now in hindsight, cheeky little Mario game or whatever, quick experiences, quick hits of entertainment, and then move on. To the point where now we have games that take on a budget bigger than most movies, and then they're able to be that conduit to storytelling and to developing this world and stuff that really engrosses you and things like that, which then brings us now to here of like, why on this channel, why here in this space and talking about trades and investments would we care about games per se? And that's, to me, now in this merging of cryptocurrency and gaming, that now gaming is becoming a conduit to learning more about trading, learning more about mechanics of trading and open markets and player driven markets and buyers and sellers. And if you can take all those things and dress them up with a gamified interface, all of a sudden, now you're tapping two massive mindsets and kind of bringing them together in a way that is why we're talking about it on this show, because it becomes an opportunity for investment in a very unique new age gamified investment that we were not able to achieve before for various reasons, I guess, is easiest to say. So in this little mini series, we'll call it, or I don't know what it'll end up being. Maybe it'll just be a real series of games that we're going to look at that are on the blockchain that we're playing right now as a way to interact with money and investments. The first one is going to be this game called Chicken, and it's an originator, we'll call it, in that they were one of the first to introduce a particular style of crypto gaming, and we'll dig more deeply into it in a future episode. But at a very high level, you have an NFT, which is there's a set of 10,000 of them, randomly generated chickens, chicken NFTs, and all chickens lay eggs. So you do this mechanism called staking. You take your NFT, you stake it, and then depending on certain attributes of your chicken will lay egg at a fixed rate per day. And then you can do things with that egg and then like earn another token called feed. And then you can feed that you earn to your chicken to make your chicken bigger. A bigger chicken lays more egg, and now we have a little triangle or what is called Tri-tokenomics model. And Chicken was kind of the first to really drive home this Tri-tokenomics. And what I thought was really interesting about Chicken is if we take a quick look here into the Google Play Store, there is a mobile game which I played a lot back, this was probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years ago, and I think this game's still going strong. It has 4.5 star rating, over 1.2 million rating reviews on it. Just super popular game. And the purpose of this game is you mash this red chicken button, and it produces a chicken who goes and lays eggs. And those eggs are eventually sold off, to the town, and then you earn money, and you can do all of these different, crazy upgrades to your farm, where eventually you don't have to push this button manually, and it'll start generating chickens automatically for you. And just a total grinder, idle earning game. And this has real world money tied into it, where you could buy these upgrades with US dollars, microtransactions, to kind of jumpstart your way through the game. And so it felt very similar to Chicken in a way, and in a way that nobody blinks at the idea of throwing money into this Egg Inc. mobile game. But it's still hard for us to grasp the concept of tying cryptocurrency to this game. But what drew me to Chicken was just the novelty, and this was obviously being the first of its kind. It was the first one that I was like, this is a really cool concept that you have these 3 tokens, one token being the NFT, one being egg, one being feed, that just kind of feed each other in this little, satisfying loop. And particularly being an idle earner, the fact that you wait a day or you earn this egg token trickled throughout the day, just is the kind of gaming I feel like we're in a lot with mobile games. So that attracted me to it. I was also early enough that I was able to buy my chicken, very not cheap, but very well priced. And then the NFT itself went up in value, which was very nice to see. But it's also just fun to play. And so that was it. As I got to playing it, I kind of told you about it, Sprocket, and I think there was, I don't know, I mean, you can elaborate if there was any initial hesitation or what it initially sounded like to you, but I know it didn't take long before it really caught your attention as like, yeah, this is kind of neat. And then fast forward, here we are. You have a chicken and you have farmland and you're doing it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coolest part about it, and a great comparison there, is you pull up the Egg Inc. game, and okay, yeah, they're both about chickens, so that's maybe some of the similarities. But for me, the real nice kind of extra benefit here is everyone can partake in this microtransaction world, right? There's different parts of the game where you're going to exchange currency, you're exchanging goods, services, things like that, but it's not limited to the developers of the game, right? The developers of the game are not the ones collecting all of the fees from this, right? It's the entire ecosystem and the participation among all the players where they all get the chance to profit with actual tangible things that can be cashed out for US dollars. And that's really the neat part, right? So it's cool from the aspect of it's a casual game. It's not, a button masher type game. But it also has aspects of it which are, very casual, collect this, build this, grow over time, but it's not limited to a select few number of people to get the benefits of some of those things.
Yeah, definitely. And that's also key to me as far as like how this plays into this general idea of decentralization as a natural next step of blockchain as the foundation gets more firm and developed and solid, that layering on these games makes sense for everything you just said. In the Egg Inc. situation, all money is obviously channeled back to the developers, which isn't to say they don't deserve it, but it's just a very linear street where now when you tie in a real player-driven economy, I mentioned that I own a chicken NFT, but you don't have to, because like you just said, this is now an economy fully supported by the people, by anyone who wants to participate. You don't have to own a chicken NFT to still potentially make a profit, or at least, well, rather than say, I mean, you're hoping to make a profit. That's the point of your investment, but to be more, generalized, I guess, that, if you want to invest in this concept, if you think this game is doing something unique, but you don't want to buy the NFT, you don't want to, there's liquidity pool providing, and there's all these different strategies that are based around this platform, and all the pieces are critical. The liquidity providers are critical, because without them, the token can't be traded. And so, that's a very real strategy, is to go LP for games that you think are doing really well without, wanting to expose yourself to the risk of NFT resale or anything like that. And all the pieces rely on each other. You need the gamers for the LP to matter, and so I think that's a very cool piece of it. Like you said, that it's you can participate in any part of the economy that you want, as you would any other investment, which is also to say not financial advice.
So that brings us to the end of this week's episode, where we just wanted to introduce this concept of gaming, the blockchain, and cryptocurrencies. And really, I wanted to frame it in a way that shows the natural progression from the very early stages of the cartridge games that Viper and myself kind of grew up on through, the introduction of online play to the introduction of purchasing goods and services in microtransactions or stores inside games, and it's just this natural progression of games forward. And we're going to take a look here in the upcoming weeks, deep dive into some of these specifics of the games, really talk about the ones that Viper and I are playing, trading, investing in, because we are putting our real dollars in some of these games. And so I hope you guys kind of enjoy this little series. It's a little bit different, but like I said, it goes around that blockhead traders mentality of where is there opportunity for growth? Where is there opportunity for value expansion? And how can we trade that? And that's what it's all about. So good luck out there this week. If you're playing in the equities market, you're playing in the cryptocurrencies, volatility is starting to come down a little bit, but there's still a lot of exciting opportunities out there. So have fun and remember, think outside the block.